Police are 100 times more likely than the average person to be convicted of cybercrime. 100 times. That's the extraordinary statistic published in a new report by my colleague Harriet Williamson on novaramedia.com. The article is based on analysis of information in the Cambridge Computer Crime Database and reveals that in 2024, officers and staff who had misused police databases made up 42% of all cybercrime convictions, despite being only 0.4% of the UK population. Now, it's a very striking statistic, and earlier today, I spoke to Harriet to find out more. I began by asking for examples of cybercrime committed by police officers.
One of them is where the girlfriend of a gang member got a job with the police and then started a relationship with a colleague, so she could use his login to steal data that identified a key witness who'd testified against her partner and put him in prison. As part of a covert investigation into organised crime, the police took down an encrypted communications platform called EncroChat, and a police employee leaked sensitive information about that investigation to a drug dealer. So she tipped off people who were using the communications platform and disrupted countless police investigations, including international ones. One thing that I would like to really pull out from this report is that a lot of these cybercrimes seem to be in service of misogyny. So a lot of them involve things like stalking and surveillance of women. You have police officers getting the personal details of women who've come to the police as victims to report things like domestic and sexual violence against them. And police officers are finding their personal details and then, in some cases, stalking and harassing them, trying to pursue sex and sexual relationships with them. It's also worth flagging that a lot of this is what I would probably categorise as nosiness. So officers and employees want to go through the police database and they want to find information on their own families and on their current and former partners. Viewers might remember the case of Nicola Bulley. It was a very high-profile case at the time involving a 45-year-old woman who went missing in Lancashire while walking her dog. And last month, a Lancashire police officer admitted 32 counts under the Computer Misuse Act and received a 6-month suspended sentence, as she had illegally accessed the police computer systems and passed on details of the Nicola Bulley investigation to her own family, specifically her mother. And it was found that she had illegally accessed police computer systems over a period of several years.
So it seems like we've got three types of abuse here. So you've got people who are joining the police specifically to do data crime, kind of, I suppose we can call this corruption, right? So you join the police to find out some information that will be useful to people you're working with, gang members, friends, finding out the identity of witnesses, very serious, something like I can imagine from Line of Duty. Then you've also got maybe what we can call kind of creepy, abusive male police officers. So a woman reports a crime and then a police officer tries to find out her details so that they can then sort of flirt with her. And then this other category, which was the final example you gave there of people who are a bit nosy and want to gossip. So there's a high profile case. They say, oh, well, actually, I've got access to this computer system, which means I can know a bit more than everyone else. And so they go in there, find out the information and tell their friends or family. And these are all criminal behavior, which police seem to be engaging in. Obviously, your article sort of talks about the overrepresentation of police officers in this type of crime. 42% of cybercrime convictions are of police officers. They're only 0.4% of the population. Presumably, that's a lot to do with sort of opportunity, because I imagine not many people can do cybercrime. I'm not sure I have access to the kind of databases that would be criminal for me to look at, but police officers have these databases in front of them, and the temptation just seems to be too much for them, I suppose.
I probably want to flag here that more people have access to databases where misusing them would be classed as cybercrime than we might think. Any sort of public sector or commercial role where you have access to sensitive data, misusing that access or using it for your own personal gain or, to find things out that you are interested in would constitute cybercrime. I think that police are vastly overrepresented in those figures precisely because it's so clear cut in these cases, and it is relatively easy for the police to look at who has been using their database and to find out whether or not that was for a genuine policing purpose. a lot of workplaces actually don't want to report their employees engaging in cybercrime because it is a bad look for them. It could scare away customers, investors. It's the cybercrime that is getting reported and then being prosecuted and people are convicted for it is the tip of the iceberg. It's so the tip of the tip. It's like a shard, and then there's like a vast funnel that we don't even know about.
Does that put the story in a different light? Because, when you say, 42% of people doing cybercrime are police officers, one conclusion is say, God, police officers, what wrong-uns. They're all out there to sort of break crimes involving our data. The other thing you say is maybe the police are the only institution in the country who are actually prosecuting this properly. And then, so you could say this is actually a surprising example of accountability within the police. If you do a cybercrime and you're a copper, you get caught. You can't say that about, I suppose, sexual harassment and sexual abuse, because we know that often doesn't go punished in the police force.
I suppose you could interpret the data that way, but I would also say that this shows a failure of the police in investigating and prosecuting other types of cybercrime that are not related to themselves, which, it is being reported, whether they are getting enough evidence or they have the tools and the resources to take cases forward. That's a whole other question. If the police get a lot of negative publicity around that, they might decide to just sweep it under the carpet in the future and not prosecute their own to the extent that we are seeing, which obviously would be a bad thing and not as transparent. But I think the conclusion that the paper's author came to is that the police need more resources to prosecute other types of cybercrime that don't involve police officers. These examples from the police are very clear-cut examples of crime. I don't think that there's any argument that you could make that they shouldn't be prosecuted for this, and that police are in a position of power, and they have a real public duty to protect our data when they have access to it and not use it for their own personal gain. Some of these cases of male police officers could be construed as creepiness, like just male creepiness, but I think they're much more serious than that. They're very insidious. They are about abusing power over really vulnerable women and using them for officers' sexual gratification, which is deeply disturbing, particularly in light of the kidnapping, rape and murder of Sarah Everard by serving armed police officer Wayne Couzens in 2021.